Hello, today I want to talk about a great little feature in Cubase's channel settings that you might not have come across because it's a little bit hidden, and it's called channel comparison. Now I use this to identify the change that an effects unit that a plugin is having on my sound. Obviously, ultimately everything boils down to your ears, I understand that, but my ears aren't professional level, I'm not a professional engineer. And sometimes I struggle to identify the really subtle differences, and I use visual aids to help me guide my ears to the kind of thing that I'm supposed to be listening for. And then when I am able to home in on what it is I'm supposed to be focused on, then I can hear the differences and I can close my eyes and do the whole A/B thing and actually hear the difference. Sometimes I just need a bit of help getting there, and that's what I'm going to use channel comparison for. So what I've got here is a drum rhythm. So this is a Groove Agent drum rhythm. It's just really simple pattern. It's going to kind of spin along in the background, doing its own thing. I've then copied that track. So drums no FX is currently identical. These two tracks are exactly the same. Exactly the same levels. I've not done anything at all, just duplicated the track. Now what I'm going to do is apply an effects unit to drums with FX, and I'm going to choose a compressor. First compressor in my, so this is a list of all of the compressors that I've kind of selected out of the stuff that's available to me, and I'm really on a mission at the moment to find the different characteristics and qualities of each one of these pieces of kit. That's my mission. And so we'll start with the first one in the list, and here it is. So first things first, without doing anything else, just listen to those two effects units. So that's clearly louder. But apart from the fact that they're loud, that the unaffected version is louder, I'm not really able to identify with very fine granularity the difference, what the compressors bring into the party, and that's the mission today. Now the first thing that we've got to do is equalize those volumes, because loud things always sound better than quiet things. So we've got to get that fixed before we can do anything else. And I've got Insight over here to help me. So if I just refresh all of my views, and we're going to start with the unaffected track, and I'm going to take a baseline volume level of what this is. I can actually turn the output track down so that I can talk to you over the top of it. We don't need to hear that rhythm constantly spinning in the background. So you can see that we can have a look at the short-term measurement, which is basically measuring the last 3 seconds worth of loudness. And that comes up with a composite view, which is around about -16. Between -15, 14.5, there's probably a crash in there. And the integrated value, the one in the middle, is the total sum of everything that the meter has heard since I press play. So ultimately, eventually, that will be the complete picture, you know, the genuine single point of truth. But in any given period of time, let's say I press play and then there's an immediate crash, the short-term measurement would be skewed. But you can see eventually they do settle down to the loudness integrated measurement is kind of perfect. So -15 is what we've settled out at. So what I want to do now is to get my drums with FX channel exactly that. And don't worry, we are going to deal with channel comparison. That's the end goal. But we've got to get baselined first. We've got to have these two levels equivalent. So I can refresh my meter and press play again. And now we're looking for -15 on the integrated measurement for the compressed channel. So if I go into manual makeup mode, okay, that actually took me a couple of minutes to really nail it perfectly, but we're there. So these two tracks are now the same integrated volume level. So what I'm now going to do is finally go into the channel comparison. Firstly, I want to open this equalizer settings box and set both of my transparencies to 100%. In other words, I want these envelopes to be completely opaque. See this envelope curve here? I want that to be solid. and we do that by setting these levels to 100%. And then I make sure that my drum with FX track is the one that I've got selected. It's soloed, so that's all good. That's exactly what I want. Drop this box down and select drums no FX. So now Cubase is dynamically identifying the difference between those two curves, and the only difference between the tracks is the compressor. We've normalized the levels. Both of the tracks are running at -15 LUFS, which is an integrated decibels. Don't worry about the noise thing. They're both the same volume. That's the important thing. But the compressed track, generally speaking, will seem louder to the ears. So let's have a listen to the two things, and we'll use the comparison buttons to do it. So I just click on this button, and now I'm listening to drums no FX. I don't have to leave the channel settings box. I do everything inside this window. Can you see this blue halo? That's basically telling you that the compressor is louder across almost the entire frequency range, and yet there's no difference in overall volume between these two tracks. They're both operating at -15. That's the wonder of compression. It takes those loudest parts of the sound away, and then with your makeup gain you bring the entire thing up so that it's very slightly squashed. And the idea is, I mean, we're not trying to make an early 2000s rock record here where, you know, the loudness wars and all that nonsense. We want a little bit of control so that the overall sound of the drums is louder and punchier, but we don't want to kind of, you know, squash the crap out of them. Listen to the snare. It's like dead and flat here, and I'm being exaggerated, you know, there's not a vast difference, but the snare doesn't have quite as much pow, you know, that's got pow. It's also a little bit hot, to be honest. I just trimmed 3 dB off both drum sounds so that we can just get them under a little bit more control. So now let's start having a look at what the difference between those compressors is visually. And this is what I'm talking about, using my eyes to help guide my ears to the right thing to listen to. So when we're watching the affected track, you can see there's an orange halo around the kick, which means the kick is getting through before the compressor has an opportunity to clamp down on it, and that's contributing to a lot of the overall level from the unaffected track. That's what the compressor brings to the party. It takes that away. If we consider it to be unnecessary, then we're throwing that unnecessary stuff away, and we're replacing that volume with something that we think is more valuable. That's the point. Other than the kick, there's not that much to be had. There's a very slight difference in shape of the snare, just around 250. The unaffected track is just poking its head out every now and again, and there's a little bit down below as well. And then a few of the hat transients are escaping before the compressor can clamp down on them. Looking at it from the other perspective gives us a totally different view. This is the beauty of toggling between the two channel comparison tracks, because in the same interface we now get to see predominantly the unaffected sound, and then behind it where the compressor is taking over and generating something that's louder. So we've got this overall blue halo, that's the compression effect, just basically raising the level of everything after having let those transients through. Let's have a listen to the hi-hats, this stuff up in the top end, because there's quite a significant difference between you know, the blue stuff, the compressed stuff is louder. Let's see if we can catch that with our ears. So this is unaffected. Now, see, this is exactly the point I'm making. Even during the course of the making of this video, I hadn't previously focused on the hats as being an area of concern. And the moment I use my eyes to say, there's something interesting here, go and check it out, then wow, you know, it blows you away that they were so much better. Let's bring them back up again. There's lots of air. And suddenly they feel suppressed and damp. Let's focus in on the kick and see if we can hear the difference between those two. Again, visually we're being told that the unaffected track is generating a louder kick, but the compressed track is going to be kind of flatter and more controlled. So this is affected. Really interesting. It sounds quieter to me. The unaffected kick sounds quieter, but we know it isn't, but it sounds like it is. And that's because the compressor is helping to accentuate those frequencies in a kind of magical way. It's the whole point of why One Man and His Songs exists. I want to learn this stuff, and I'm using tools like this to teach me. Each hit just seems to be being elongated and strengthened in some indefinable way. My mission now is to basically play with this compressor for hours on end with different settings, looking at the graph, seeing what visual difference it's doing, making sure that my loudness meters are always absolutely spot on, so my ears aren't being polluted by a volume difference, and then choosing each area of the frequency band and homing in on that and saying, right, what can you do for me? I have even gone one step further than that, which I won't cover today because it's just an extra thing, but I actually have this kind of manual filter thing going on with my equalizer where I can focus in on a particular frequency range and just listen to what's going on with the hats, just listen to the snare. But you know, that's another subject for a different day. So that's channel comparison for you, a completely amazing tool. I can't recommend it highly enough. Do this if your ears aren't as good as the professionals and you're sick of them telling you this thing is amazing and you can't tell what difference it is. You know, we need to learn it. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please hit the like button and check out my Patreon stuff below if you're interested. Thanks a lot.